afraid to like be in Discord right now. And this is a really interesting one. Why didn't God stop Adam and Eve from eating the fruit? That's a good exegesis, a fun video to get into. I don't know how this is gonna work for you guys, but I really don't. Well, first let's go through a couple. Let's go to the meme channel and see if there's any good memes in here. All right, silence. It's rambling stream time. I love it. I love the.
Did you watch these videos already, or do you want to watch them?
What, the ones in the general chat?
Yeah, because I'd be curious to see if you have a response to what we talked about last time.
What specifically?
The problem of evil.
Oh, do I have
like God not preventing evil and allowing it?
Oh, yeah. I don't have a better response probably now than I did last time, which is that we can't say that the problem of evil is a logical problem of evil, because logically God could have greater purposes for any evil. So there's no like contradiction with the problem of evil. That's what I would say. And then if I remember your formulation correctly, it's like, well, God could not, a God who is all good and has no evil like within him or whatever, could not be,
wouldn't have the capacity to allow evil. Yeah.
Of evil would not have the capacity to allow evil. But if some goods only come from evil, like for instance, bravery needing fear of death or fear of whatever's happening, then just because a person is extremely brave, that doesn't mean they're evil because they're brave in the face of fear. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. And my response last time to that was, the greatest good already exists. God is already the greatest good. No good that could ever come about by any order of magnitude from any evil that is ever produced could ever match the amount of good that God does. In fact, I think that you would have to say that any good that is produced in the universe falls short of the glory of God. And so, by that logic, I don't think that any evil ever is justified, because no good can match. But no matter what.
We're just talking about the universe here, because we agree, we know that creation adds nothing to God's fullness of being or anything like that.
Well, part of creation is allowance of evil.
It doesn't make him better. Yeah, but
I agree.
But so, if there's an allowance of evil within creation to make creation better, how is that evil?
To make creation better? Why would he need to make anything better?
Well, because creation...
In fact, why would he need to make anything if he's perfect?
Well, again, then that's just a completely different theology. If you think that nothing should have been made or whatever, but that's just not what we're talking about.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying anything should not have been made, right? First of all, I don't think anything was made. I am just saying, if you have a perfect being who is just basically saying he has no necessities, he has no needs, he has no impure wants, he's all good, right?
Yeah.
Why would he want evil? Because essentially, what you're saying is that
he despises evil.
Well, I agree, but essentially what you're saying is in the Bible is that he wanted evil so that he could get the good he also wanted, the greater good he also wanted.
No.
Well, yes, because he created the universe in which evil would prosper.
Yeah, but that's not why. This is such a misinterpretation or misapplication of the story of evil entering the universe. Oh wait, I almost tried to enter the discussion. That was bad. So God created goods. Everything he created were goods. All he wanted were goods. Now, the fact of the matter is that two goods can interact with each other to create evil. The good of having agents, things that can talk and move and do stuff, and free will. And if those two things interact to create evil, God is just, it's not like God created evil or wanted evil. It's that God is so good that even though his creation can do evil, he makes it even better. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I see the narrative you're...
Oh no. Oh my God. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, am I back?
I think you're back.
Oh my god, dude. If you could see my screen right now, it's like, oh my, oh my god. All right. After this, I'm gonna like uninstall Discord or whatever. But for now, Discord, you're not getting touched. That's my bad. I tried to. I had the gall to think I could send a message or even look at the messages in the discussion chat, but I cannot.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so
Continue with what you were saying, and we also have some chats in the YouTube to that address this. So,
oh, okay. I
but
mean,
yeah.
I'll finish off what I was saying. The thing that I'm saying is that the narrative is one way and the reality is another way. If you view the actions of the story of Genesis
Mm-hmm.
as the actions of God, right? As in creation, and then
Sure.
you imply the properties of God, which is he could have created a different universe. That doesn't seem illogical, right? You believe in
No.
possible
Yeah.
universes.
Yeah. I think he could
Um,
have.
and there's nothing illogical about being about an all good creation. Um,
No.
I think that any greater good that comes about by an evil would be absolutely unredeemable to God. And I feel like that's actually supported in the Bible because no good that comes about by the original sin until Jesus is able to be forgiven until I think what is it
Well, that's not true, but
like well I mean yeah I think unless you consider what's it called like the people who were brought specifically to heaven like Moses, right?
well, sure that,
But
but even all, it was. I think the understanding was that um, all Jews, anyone who practiced the right rituals and whatever, could seek repentance. Now it's just a lot easier with Jesus. Even Adam and Eve, according to
right, but
this
they weren't
exegete.
deserving of it is what I'm saying. Like they didn't
Well, yeah,
deserve it
even with
in the
Jesus, we're not
moral.
deserving of it. But yeah,
Well, no, because Jesus made us deserving of it if we follow him. So if we
I
follow
guess.
Jesus and follow his teachings, we actually are deserving of it. But
No.
everyone falls short of the teachings of Jesus. Therefore, none of us are worthy.
Yeah,
But he did
you know what?
open a way
Yeah.
for us to be worthy.
Sure. Not really to be worthy, but just to receive the grace that we don't deserve. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But there's the thing is that the saying of we don't deserve it. The saving of us we didn't deserve, but we are saved. That's the thing is that like we do
Oh.
deserve it now.
Uh, I
Us
get
deserving
that.
it is the saving. Like it's saving our souls. Like we can get to without blood sacrifice, without payment
Yeah.
of blood, we can get there.
Yes, I agree with that. Um, I'd just be hesitant to say that we deserve it. It is a
Well, no, the
grace
people
of
who
God.
practice the teachings of Jesus deserve it,
No,
but
even them.
everyone falls
We're
for.
all sinners. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
That's
But
what I'm saying.
yeah,
If you follow the teachings of Jesus, you and believe in Jesus, you are worthy. But
yeah.
by our nature, everyone falls short of the nature of God. Therefore, yeah. But before, even if we did, we were still unworthy because of that original sin.
Right.
Like we
So
still had
basically,
that.
is your argument that if God is all good, then he just simply could not have created this universe? Because
Yeah,
there
because he would
is
be
evil
allowing
in
for
it.
evil. Yeah,
Because he'd be
but
allowing
like
for evil.
it's as if
Okay.
like you had something hard coded to be like you can't create evil. Do
Yeah.
you think that computer could ever, by reasoning of just creating goods that interact and create evil, not like you think it could do that? I don't think it could do that. It's not even a workaround. And even if it is a workaround, it's a workaround. Like it's a cheat. Like it's not. I don't think God would be so assholey
Mhm.
to basically be like, well, I didn't create the evil. I created two good things and they created the evil. You know what I mean? Like he had the option to create this universe which had evil in it, and he made that decision.
But what was his other like? So, for example, how would he create an all good universe with free will and agents and not allow for the possibility of evil? And would that make him
I don't think
good?
he. I don't think he. Well, so I don't think he needs to create those greater goods to be as good as you're
No, no,
talking about,
no.
because again, he's God.
Well, if he has agents, so either he has people like
Also,
you
he
and
has
me
free
and
will.
angels.
So
Yeah, and he has free will. Uh, so either he
also,
has
Sean said he
agents
tagged
or he
me.
doesn't.
So Sean said,
Oh yeah,
"Remember, it's a part of God's infinite goodness that he be able to make good out of evil."
right. So there's that. Um, and then also just like logically, like how would you? I'm curious how you would create a universe that has people whom you love, agents whom you can love, and who
I
can
couldn't.
love you back.
That's the contradiction. I couldn't. That's the contradiction.
Well, I know
Reality
you.
contradicts the existence of God.
I know you couldn't, but it obviously doesn't contradict the reality of God. So if you're
Well,
imagine
it
you're
does
all
because
good
free
and you
will
have the
is an
ability to,
evil.
you think it's your opinion that free will is evil.
Let me be more specific. Free will causes evil.
Free will allows for the possibility of evil, sure.
Well, some people's free will. I mean, if we're talking about free will in the
Free will is not like
holistic
causal
sense.
per se. Yeah,
Oh, anyway,
yeah.
I think it would have to be in the pattern we're talking about,
I
but
guess it's somewhat
um,
causal, yeah. But I mean, it's part of one of many causes, I guess. But
yeah,
okay, so sorry, go ahead. So you can create a universe where there are both people to love and whom love you, and they are not slaves. You can do that
I
without free will.
I
Or
literally
how?
said the opposite of that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, you by saying the opposite of that, you're implying that this other thing
I
is a
don't think it could
possibility.
be done. No,
Okay.
no, I'm not. I said I don't think it could be done by
Okay.
an all good God.
And you don't see at
So
all how
therefore, an
that's
all good
not.
God doesn't exist.
Yeah, but you don't see at all how you could create all goods like free will and people, but you think free will is evil or has some sort of quality
No,
of
no,
evilness inherent in it.
I made the mistake of saying that. I said it allows for evil. It causes evil.
Got you. Got you. Well, again, it doesn't
Like, do you
have to
not think that
cause
some
evil.
people's
It
free
depends
wills
on what
cause
the free
evil?
will. Yes, of course. Yeah, yeah. It just
There
depends
you go.
on what they
That's what I mean
choose
by
to do.
causes evil. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but that does that make free will evil? No, because if you don't have free will, then you're a slave, and so that's no good. Not even a slave,
Wait,
like
but
some
hold
sort of
on. But hold on.
automaton. Like you're like
But hold
some
on.
sort
Is
of
being a
robot.
slave to God bad?
Well, it's those are two completely different contexts. So if you're a
Well,
slave to
no, it's
God
not,
by
because
your
everything
own
is a slave to
free
God if you have no free
choice,
will.
if you're a slave to God by your own free choice, that's one thing.
Are the
A slave
angels
to Jesus.
slaves to God?
Yes, by their own choice because they could have
But
fallen.
okay, so they have free will.
Yes. Well, that's questionable. I actually don't know. Angelology
I
is
don't think. I
interesting
literally
and
think by their nature
vast.
they don't.
I think I
I think
think
the archangels
my
might.
understanding is that some of them might, some of them might not. That type of thing. All right, let's go to Numenon real quick in the YouTube chat just to see what he's talking about. So, okay, miss. Okay, P1, allowing evil is an imperfection. P2, God is a perfect being, therefore God cannot allow evil. Numenon rejects 1, and he thinks notions of perfection in premise 2 are usually arbitrary. Yeah. And he says, I always thought that people, even in the past, were saved by Jesus' future sacrifice. I think that's the case as well. I think that's what we're taught.
Oh yeah, they were. They were. He literally brought people out from hell. Isn't that like part of the story?
Yeah, descended into hell and emptied it. And then Numenon says, free will seems like a necessary condition for evil, but not a sufficient condition. I also think you could have free will without it giving rise to evil. Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Like choosing between many good alternatives. So one thing that's really important that Christianity, like, or actually monotheism in general, Judaism, like sort of defined as the theology is that the creation is separate from divinity. Divinity and creation are these like two different ontological categories. So whatever's going
source is
on
divinity.
about what?
Except its source is divinity.
Sure. And
so they're necessarily connected, at least in very least causally, and I would say implicitly morally.
Okay, fair enough. But that doesn't mean that what happens here happens in the source, right?
What do you mean?
Well, so there's evil abundant here. That doesn't mean there's evil in the source from which it came.
Right,
John,
but the source allowed for evil.
Not really. I mean, the source. Okay,
well,
maybe
I think you have to say that.
Yeah, the source allowed for evil or whatever. but only by creating goods and being as good as he could possibly be, by embodying all goods and wanting to have a genuine loving relationship with people and with creation.
Well, I mean, if you're saying that God is at least in part made of greater goods that can only be allowed for in evil circumstances, then God is in part evil.
No, no, this is not what.
Well, then how can he embody any good that is a necessary result of evil? How can he embody bravery if there's nothing to brave?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. At the source level, do words even mean anything like bravery and this and that? It's kind of
Well,
like
I'm not
maybe
talking
it's,
about the words meaning anything. I'm talking about the
yeah,
ideas. I'm talking about what bravery
but that's what
means. I'm
that's
talking
what I'm
like,
saying as well. It's like, okay, so obviously there's nothing that God needs to be brave for. Although interestingly, he sends
I mean,
his
Jesus
son
would have been
to
defined
be
as brave.
brave. Exactly. So interestingly, he does become brave, and all the things that can only be embodied in this sort of evil context. But
Right, but
you read
God is
that
not
story
changing,
and
so
you
it
go,
can't be the.
but wait a second, Jesus is perfect in that story. And so it's not like he becomes evil just because he has to look at evil or face evil or defeat it. Um, so, okay, then the other way, oh, I had another point. Oh, yeah, it also might be the case that, well, we already addressed that with Jesus, but like God obviously doesn't have to be brave, but if he did, then he would, right? So like he
Well, I'm saying
has
that
it,
you're saying
but
that he
like,
embodies all goods, including greater goods, right?
right. So
Right, which means some of the things that he embodies are necessarily the result of evil and nothing else. Because you're saying they can't come about by any other means than evil. Otherwise, he could have created a universe where bravery exists, but evil doesn't.
well, how would he do that?
Well, because he already embodies such a concept. It's not like it's foreign or contradictory or logically contradictory. Otherwise, you'd have to say that God is logically contradictory. I don't think you'd say
Well,
that.
no, yeah. But I just don't see how
Yeah.
he could have formed a universe that has bravery and not fear.
I mean, I also don't, but I also think that he embodies bravery without. You have to think that he embodies bravery without being evil, right?
Yeah.
So he could have created a universe that has bravery without evil.
Um. Well,
Because
no,
for
no.
him to embody that, it must not be logically contradictory.
Well, he doesn't like embody it. Like bravery flows out of him as the source of good. Like goodness is one thing, and everything that we call good is flows out of that source of goodness. So whatever bravery is, like beyond the words, beyond even the image in our head, beyond the meaning, like beyond a knight defending a princess from a dragon, it comes from the font, the singleness, the simple good that God embodies. So like that's what I was
Right,
saying
but
with,
you're just
but that's what,
like
but
I don't mean
don't you see
to.
it? So like God on his level or whatever, on that source level, uh, it would be completely meaningless to call him brave. I agree with you on that. That doesn't mean that bravery doesn't flow out of the source of his goodness, right? So it's not like
Right,
there's
but this is
evil
the thing.
within
This
him that
is
makes him brave. It's just that once evil gets introduced into the picture, suddenly, because God is good, there is bravery, right? Do you understand that?
well, no, like again, like and I don't mean to. I usually don't say shit like that, but this sounds like
Yeah.
gibberish. Like it's more, it's
Okay.
like a linguistic issue. Like forget about the meaning, forget about the thing. The only way bravery exists, right?
Okay.
And I think you would
Yeah.
agree that he, at least in some part, is made up of this greater good because he is all good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He's at least in part made of this greater good, or not in part because he doesn't have parts, but like
Right.
That's why I said embodies.
Yeah, but that's not
Is
that good either
bravery,
because he
right?
doesn't
He
really
is, like I
embody
suppose
it.
we could say he is bravery. He is
Sure.
good. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
that's fine.
Sure.
So in that way, what we can say is there are necessarily, by definitions of the thing,
Okay.
things that need to have the pre-contexts of evils. They
Okay.
just need to have them, right?
Sure.
Bravery is overcoming adversity even though they doubt themselves, right?
Okay.
Like
So you're saying
that's
that
what bravery is, but God can't doubt himself.
right.
So he
Exactly.
can't be
So
brave.
it's meaningless to call him brave. I agree.
Yeah, so he's not brave.
No, that doesn't mean doesn't have it when he needs it. Like for instance, when he becomes incarnate on the earth
He
as a
doesn't need
human
anything.
being.
He's gone.
When he becomes incarnate on the earth as a human being, of course he needs to be brave.
Well, he didn't need anything. He's gone.
Fair, fine, but he begins to embody bravery when he is embodied. But the thing is, God is not embodied. So when you say he's embodying bravery, or he needs to have evil to be brave, it's like, it's a mean, that's the gibberish.
I'm
That
not
makes
saying
no
he
sense.
needs to have. It absolutely makes
Yeah.
sense. It's the definition of brave. You can't attribute something
But
to
that's why he's
something
not
without the
that's okay.
pre-context for the
We're
thing.
getting way into a rabbit hole of trying to describe an ineffable thing in extremely effable terms, when we can just look at Jesus and say, "Oh, God is brave." Simple.
Well, no,
But
because
then,
that again, it does.
I don't
You're just
understand.
saying, oh wait, you're just saying, oh well, God doesn't make sense if you try and do this. Yes,
Yes,
exactly. The
exactly.
word prohibits him existing. He
Right.
doesn't make sense. Like,
Okay. On your pedantic level, he doesn't make sense, but
how is
obviously,
that pedantic?
it's
It's
totally
a
pedantic.
property of the thing we're talking about, and I'm saying that with reality in check, reality exists,
Uh
and
huh.
in reality, bravery is this. If you say
Yes.
God is this, it contradicts
But I.
reality.
Okay.
That's how you
Wait,
disprove everything existing.
explain that to me again. Sorry. So, God
Okay,
exists,
how do you
and God.
disprove
Yeah.
Bigfoot existing?
Uh, I don't think you can disprove
Let's say we had
Bigfoot
infinite
exists.
knowledge, right? And we could prove that there was never a Bigfoot, right? You're using reality to exclude his existence, right? By the contradictions from him to reality, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Cool. I'm using reality reality, the idea of God, and seeing there's a contradiction. The contradiction is
So
that
yeah.
any good that
Okay.
is exclusive to a context of evil that he embodies makes it so that he either doesn't exist or is evil. And both of those things can't happen in your worldview.
Uh,
I
this
don't
is
mean he's like
you
all
don't see
evil. I
how
just
this
mean in
is
part.
totally like linguistic but not logical, or what? Like, okay. So you're
What are you
saying,
talking about? This is
okay, you're saying
completely logical. I'm using step by
you don't
step,
understand at
like
all. Okay,
logic.
I wish I could show you the paint. Damn it. Okay, I'm drawing something on paint, and if you don't mind, maybe opening the stream for a second so you can see it. But okay, so this we have
Yeah, sure. Hold
God.
on.
We have the goodness of God, the simple, remember, divine simplicity, extremely important. The simpleness, the absoluteness, the absolute goodness of God in
I don't see how
uncreated,
simpleness prohibits it though.
well, then there you go. That's where the confusion is. But
Well,
like
how
if
does
you can't
simpleness
accept
prohibit the
divine,
definition of the word?
what's that? Why does simpleness prohibit the definition of the word?
Yeah, because we're attributing something. We're saying he's brave,
Because everything
or
in the
in
simple
part he's
nature,
brave.
everything in the simple essence of God, he has no parts. So when you say like he's brave, so there must be evil, you're already
If he
talking
has no
about
parts, he
so
doesn't
many
exist.
different parts. Well,
If he has no parts, he doesn't
that's
exist.
where we disagree. I mean, that's where you're just you
Well, if he's
haven't.
not made of anything, he's not anything.
What are you talking about? He's made of something. Okay, well, he's
Okay,
not made of anything. You're right. He's
does
not
he have
made of
any
anything.
does he have any attributes whatsoever?
No, he has an essence that sits.
Then he doesn't
The
exist.
attributes flow down. We observe the attributes as a byproduct, as the as like a almost like an illusion of what he really is, or actually more accurately as like a refraction of pure white light entering a prism, and then all this rainbow of colors comes out, right? So God's essence is this pure white light. When it hits the refracting prism of reality, as we would call it, then you get bravery, courage, all these things that you're talking about that are parts.
Except white light is made up of the colors we see. You're saying that he's not
I
made
know.
up of
So
anything.
no, yeah, I am. Well, I'm not saying he's not made
Yeah,
up of
okay,
anything. I'm
white
just
light
saying
is
all
made
the.
up of things.
Okay, wait. So you actually, I agree. And so, but is white light purple?
It is in part purple.
Is white light blue?
It is in part blue.
And so obviously
You're
it's
saying
not
God has
green.
no parts.
I'm saying yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying God is bravery.
But white light
I'm
is
saying
not.
God has bravery. And like, so white light has purple, white light has yellow, white light has all these colors. But you're saying
But
that
how
God
can
is
somebody
simple and doesn't have these things.
then white light doesn't exist, because how can something that is purple also be yellow? Do you see what I'm saying to you? Linguistically,
Well, I'm not saying
we
it
can
is
say
yellow. I'm saying it
right,
has yellow.
right. So why is it
Does he have
impossible for God to
bravery?
have bravery and also but
It
like,
would
so
be like
no,
saying
I
one of
mean,
the colors that white has is black.
what's that? No, it's not.
It
So
would be,
you think bravery?
yes, it would, because the
you think
because the idea
bravery.
of bravery needs
Okay.
one aspect, which is evil. You can't have your God be evil.
I can't understand this. Okay.
I'm literally
Look
laying
at
it out. It has an attribute that I'm looking at the stream, by the way. I'm like, what?
Okay, cool. So you see this now. So
I do. It's like a prism. I got the idea.
Simple nature. No, but you don't get it clearly. So there's one.
I do get it. It just doesn't make
nature,
any sense.
as in these things are all completely irrelevant. They make no sense. You can't even talk about them on this level because guess what? Words don't even make sense on that level. But then,
if you can't talk about them on the level, you can't believe anything on that level because the only way we understand anything is through it. The only thing we understand, the only way we understand, well, okay, divine revelation is just magic did it. So if we're talking about logic, you're the one who stepped outside the realm of logic now.
I'm not talking about logic. I'm talking about what's true. Okay, so
you said that what I was saying was illogical. So excuse me for thinking we were talking about logic.
Okay, fair enough. It's illogical to me on a heart level because it seems so like wrong that God would have to be evil to be able for bravery to flow out of him.
But I agree. From what your point of view is, you can't have him, one, be evil and two, not exist. Those are the only options.
But even not even just my point of view, just a non-straw man point of view. Like it just seems insane. Like there's obviously no theologian or Christian that reads the Bible and goes, well, God is brave, so he must be evil because bravery is.
I agree. No, but guess what? Up until the abolition of slavery, no person read the Bible and thought slavery wasn't allowed. Correct?
False, actually. Gregory of Nyssa in the year 300 read it and thought it was self-evident.
Okay, fool. Before that, you get my point. At some point, there's someone who read the Bible and had an unintuitive thought that you think is correct.
Yeah.
So you saying nobody reads the Bible like that? I don't care. Like.
Okay. Well, if you're being if you are trying to be a well-intentioned theologian, then maybe I'll approach this conversation differently. But what you're trying to do is find these contradictions that are meaningless, I think, in order to, I don't know, make a logic, like win a pedantic victory or something.
Well, but no, because it's not pedantic. Still haven't even heard saying it's pedantic or
it's totally pedantic because it has to do with words.
No, you're not, because it's an attribute. Okay, first of all, if it has to do with words, we're talking about the conceptual level. The only thing we're talking about is words. The only thing we can define God in concepts are in words, right? And I'm not able to hold God up to you. I'm not able to hold the idea of bravery up to you. We're talking about words, right? So it's not pedantic.
Good.
But like the thing is, you're saying that the first thing I want to say is it's either not comparable to compare it to white light and a prism, or it is comparable and you're still wrong.
Well, it's not a perfect comparison, but it is
right, but it has to at least be because if we're talking about white light, it's not comparable, which I think that's the one you have to go with. Otherwise, God is composed of parts because white light is composed of parts, right?
So imagine white light that is not composed of parts, but then, okay, how about that? I mean, if
I can't do that because white light is defined like that.
Yeah, like you see how
no, because they're defined like that. That's what these things
you have
are.
No flexibility of entering outside of the words that the way that you want to specifically define them, which I understand is the way that I'm
defining them as. It's what they are. It's the truth of what they are. Like we don't prescribe the word. It's the word. Like
so, where is blue in the white light? Where is that?
In the white.
Where? What part of the white light is it?
It's dispersed all throughout it.
Okay. And green, and orange, and red all throughout it. Okay, so how is that different than this? And so where is the?
It's because you're saying it's composed of parts.
Okay.
It's composed of those colors. You're not saying that God is composed of bravery, composed of compassion, he just is.
No, God
good.
is what he is. He is being itself. He is good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And those
white light isn't just
when they hit
color.
When goodness itself hits the prism of reality, as we call it, or like materiality, in different angles. So if it hits the prism at the angle of, oh, there's a lion that you should be afraid of, then boom, bravery comes out. When it hits the angle of, oh, there's well, let me think of what's other like goods that only come.
Yeah, it's like the situation has to appear for it to shine through.
Yes,
I get what you're saying.
So I don't see.
I get what you're saying.
How are you resisting this that aggressively when it's obviously possible? I mean, what?
No. First of all, I don't know if it's obviously possible because I don't even know if there is a God. Okay, however, if we're talking about this scenario and it being comparable, you have to say that God can only be brave in part, because otherwise you have to say he's not brave.
Yes.
Because if bravery can only happen...
I'm extremely happy to say that he is not brave.
You think God isn't brave?
I think God incarnate is brave. I think God in reality is brave. I think God in materiality is brave. But
Well, I mean, so wait,
God,
hold
the
on. So
source
you
of all
think
being,
God? You?
no, there's
I'm not
no
talking about the
words.
Trinity. I'm not talking about the Trinity and
Okay,
as a whole. I'm talking about God the Father. Is
God the
he
Father.
brave?
No, the ineffable.
He's not brave. Okay.
Zero words to. Is he a father? No. There are zero
Okay. No,
words to
that's fine.
describe
That's fine.
what he is. He's ineffable. It's this
That's fine.
yellow, perfect goodness, and even that is not enough. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's what we're talking
if you're
about
able to
here.
bite the bullet on saying God is not brave, I'm okay with that.
Well, of course, God is brave.
I feel like. Well, there. What are we doing?
I did that on purpose to
Like,
piss you
what
off
are we doing?
because you're not getting it. You are completely locked into X must equal Y or some kind of a formula like that, where it's like, well, if God is brave, then
That's
he
what
can't
logic
not be
is.
brave.
If you're just talking in loves and rainbows, like what are we talking about?
No,
If we just
but
want to say things are true, that's fine.
You don't feel in your heart and in your real mind, you really don't feel that this sentence, God is brave and God is not brave, you feel like that makes no sense. That cannot be uttered. That is a completely unreal, statement.
Do you think God is all good?
Yes.
Is bravery a good?
Yes.
There you go. That's why I feel like it's wrong.
What? Why is that?
Because you're saying God isn't brave. He is all good, yet he's not brave.
No. I'm saying God is brave. But then you're talking about God on different levels. You're talking about God on completely different levels. Which level do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about him in reality, in materiality,
I'm talking
in
about
experience?
God the Father,
Yeah.
as God the Father exists in your mind, is not brave.
But you don't understand why I'm not calling him brave. I'm calling him not brave, not because he's a coward or something like that. That would be even worse. I'm saying
No,
there
I'm saying
are
the lack
not
of bravery. I'm not
words.
saying he is a coward. That's the
There are
opposite.
quite literally no words to describe what he is on that level.
What about the word perfect?
By definition, no, not good enough.
The word perfect doesn't encapsulate God.
It's about as good as you can get.
If you can't,
on this
if
level.
you can't even define God, what is the point? I don't even think you could believe in something you couldn't define.
Why not?
Because you don't understand it. It can't be believed. It doesn't have a thing.
Okay, I think we do have we have very different minds, which I appreciate and I love.
Let me be more clear.
Let me be more clear. Believe in something you can't
clear.
define. That makes no sense.
Hold on. Let me be more clear.
Okay, be more clear.
You can't believe in something of which that experience you can't define.
Oh, the experience I can define.
Right, because like obviously, you know, if I look at a chair, it's the experience I'm defining of the chair. Like, yeah, I can't really describe it in an objective reality. That's more what I mean.
Yeah, the experience
so like, if God
of being
reveals
in a
himself to you in
relationship-
personal experience, I imagine that you would first of all die. That would be the first thing that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you would be able to describe the experience, and it wouldn't necessarily hold up to what God is, right?
The God that I know I can define, but if you're asking me to define God on different levels. So on the level where there is absolutely no evil, that's why I can't that's where you're running up into this thing. You're asking me to define.
I guess that's a good definition of God.
Where there's no evil. Sure. Yeah. Wait, hold on. Let's see what Numenon said because we kind of been ignoring.
Yeah, Numenon has said a lot. Yeah.
If divinity is separate from divinity, can the creation at least become divine? Like, what about Jesus' body?
I mean, God can make creation divine, yeah.
Yeah, I think the creation could become divine. Also,
he
what
made
is
people
evil?
do miracles and stuff, so.
Also, what is evil? In my view, it's human decisions that contradict God's desires for our use of free will. However, I don't see why God can't at the same time desire humans to have free will to use it right. That's what I think.
I suppose you could define evil as that choice which is made by humans that is bad.
Or any created being, but yeah.
Yeah, because then you'd have to say Lucifer's shit wasn't bad. Yeah, I mean, you could just use evil and exclude God within the definition, but I feel like that wouldn't be prescriptive. That's descriptive. So.
Okay.
That would be prescriptive, not descriptive. Sorry.
Okay. Numenon says, I think he's onto something. P1, bravery is a goodness. P2, God has all properties that are good. P3, bravery requires you to have fears to overcome. Conclusion, God therefore must have fears to overcome. However, I just think that bravery is a human duty, and thus goodness in humans, but not a duty of God, and thus not a duty of God, which I kindly agree. Yeah, sorry, Numenon, that you just got acknowledged. I get all heated. So if God has no attributes, how is there a Trinity? How can you even interact with a purely simple being? I think divine simplicity collapses into several
Welcome
problems.
to
No,
Trinity, mate.
so divine, yeah, we'll ignore the Trinity for now, just because that's just so mind bending. But divine simplicity is not that God has no attributes; it's that God has a simple
Wait, so
divine
he does have
essence.
attributes?
Yes, of course.
Brother,
Only, but on
put back the
are you
recording, I
looking
beg
at
of
the? Are
you.
you still looking at the paint, brother? Are you still looking at the paint?
I am looking at the paint, but I'm remembering what you said too.
Simple. Oh, that was the wrong color. Simple. Refracting lens of materiality. Attributes. Okay? None of this is not God. This is all still God, but there's levels to it. There have to be levels to it. There's materiality. Maybe you might even call it reality or something like that. But it's
Do you know what we define white light
it
as?
can 100% be the case that God is purely, simply good with one essence, one simple essence, and then when okay, forget refracted if you hate the white light analogy. I think it's pretty good, but if you hate it, then we can forget it.
I'm not saying I hate it. I'm just saying using it still makes you wrong.
It's not a perfect analogy. There are no words to describe. Any analogy is bad. I'm just doing the best
Then
I
there's
can.
no way to logically. There's no way to logically
If
disprove
there's
the
not
problem of
a
evil.
perfect analogy for something, then you can't logically disprove the problem of evil.
If there's no perfect analogy for something, I would say you need a perfect analogy for the existence of the divine simplicity of God with the argumentation.
I need
you're
a
going
perfect.
through.
Okay, well,
I think that
then we should end the stream because there's absolutely zero way that I'm gonna make a perfect analogy for anything, anything. Right?
No, I didn't say
By
that.
definition.
I said that you'd need an analogy for the divine simplicity of God, and I don't think you have one.
That's a decent analogy. You just have to imagine one little thing about light.
Because with the analogy, it doesn't work.
Well, okay, explain that. Explain to me how it doesn't work with the analogy.
White light is defined, right? White light being gone in this sense as being composed of all colors.
Okay.
God, as you said before, but now we're not saying, is that he has no attributes. He has no properties. He's not made up of anything.
On this highest level, yeah.
Okay, so he's not made up of anything. So the analogy falls apart. That's the prime reason for the... What do you mean why? I just compared the things we're trying to analogize.
Well, you know it's not a perfect analogy, so why does the analogy fall apart?
It doesn't need to be a perfect analogy for it to be analogous. For instance, if we have something where it's like, oh, the sun is like a giant light bulb. Now, at what level of comparison are we talking there? Are we talking about how it lights up the sky?
Yeah.
Cool. That works for that. Now, does it work when we get up right fucking next to it? No, it won't work like that. It's not a giant light bulb in the sky. When we're talking about this level of God...
Then you understand.
Yeah, I do. When we're talking about this level, the level that we are talking about... The analogy doesn't work. Fails.
The analogy doesn't work when you get right up into the sun, right up next to it, as you said. Perfect.
That's the level we're discussing now.
No,
the analogy doesn't work.
We can't discuss that level. We're discussing the
level.
If
we can't discuss the level, what's the point of the paint?
Well, to try to have another analogy, I guess. But anyway, so there's nothing to be said about this. I have no words at all. At all.
Then
no
why are we talking about it?
No concepts. Well, I don't know. You brought it up. But,
I brought it up and you responded with this. I didn't draw the pen.
Well, it's the best I can do. If you bring something up, I try my best. I mean, what else should we do? Just not try? What would be the point
listen, I'm not blaming for you. I'm not blaming you for you. I didn't know that this was going to go this way. I'm just saying that if
hear
we
me
have...
out a little bit. Hear me out a little bit.
Okay,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. When you call the sun a light bulb, that works on some material, non-local, like us on Earth, the sun way out there level.
Oh, well, right? Simulate level.
And then when you get right next to the sun, the analogy makes no sense, right? That's exactly what this
I wouldn't say
analogy
no
is
sense,
doing.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing right here. This analogy works great, I think, on our material, very far away, not even remotely close to the trueness of God level. And then when you get right next up to it, it falls apart completely, as all words do, as all analogies do, at this source.
Yeah, and I understand that. I hear you there. That's what I'm saying. Now I'm talking about the area of discussion, right?
Okay.
Because we agree that on certain levels the
Uh-huh.
analogy works. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
On one level, it might work.
Yeah.
I'm saying the level of discussion isn't on Earth, it's next to the sun. And we're at the
How could we
point to
be
where
that?
the
We're
analogy
using
doesn't work.
no, but we're using language, so it still works. I don't understand.
Well, no, because first of all, analogy doesn't necessarily contribute to all form of language, like especially foundational, like suppositional arguments. But like,
Hmm.
we're at this level.
But you just asked me how can
Like,
God be brave and not have evil within him? That's the question, right? That's why I drew this picture.
how could God be evil? Or sorry, not be evil. How could God be brave or
Yeah.
any good that requires an evil
Yeah.
and not have evil?
And
Because they
that's
are by
why
definition required.
I drew this.
I'm
I
aware
mean,
that's
that's
why you
it's as
drew.
simple as that. I don't know what else to say. It's like the bravery only applies in on our local level of materiality and evil. On his level, it doesn't apply. On our level, it applies. Like, how do we not? I don't understand. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like,
No, no, I'm not either. I listen. I'm Irish, dude. I get loud. I don't get
yeah,
angry. I
yeah,
enjoy these discussions.
yeah, me too, me too. But does that not make sense? Like, on our level, you need like bravery is a concept, makes sense. On that level, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It isn't a concept, right? Does that come to? Okay, let's get Newman on. Okay, so if God has no attributes, how is there a Trinity? So yeah, so that's why God does have attributes, is what I was saying. He also is divinely simple, right? So there's the attributes are what we can understand and conceptualize and talk about. The divine simplicity is what we basically can't. It's his essence. It's the oneness of him. Okay, so uh, also, couldn't you maybe say that Jesus was brave in his human nature? You could do that to really maintain the view that the Christian God exemplifies all goodness. And yeah, and maybe it could even be an objection against other religions that lack the incarnation. Totally agree with you, Newman.
That would
On
be a fun.
totally
That would
in
be a
on that.
fun defeat against like a Muslim or something. I
Well,
mean,
yeah,
Muslims believe Jesus existed, but they don't believe he was God, so
right,
it's not the same.
right. And actually, I've heard this. This is really interesting. Where God Logic is a Christian apologist, typically to Muslims, and one thing he'll ask them, he goes, "So is God all? Is God like the greatest at loving? Like, is he all love? Does he have all love? Does he love? Is God love?" And the Muslims go, "Well, yeah, absolutely. God is all love. He is the fullness of love." And then God Logic asks him, he's like, "Well, so is it better to have selfish love, like you just love yourself, or is it better to love another?" And then, it depends on where they're at, but usually people think about it for a second. They're like, well, obviously it's better to have love for another person, this sort of reciprocal love. And then God Logic goes, boom, that's why you need the Trinity, because God can't be maximally loving if it's just him up there. So it's a little bit of an interesting proof, and it rings true to me that the Trinity would allow for the maximally loving God, the lover, the beloved, and the love they share, all on this divine plane. Um, so, another interesting point. Uh, Maybe the analogy could work like we see it as white, but it is actually many shades together. Thus, something can be ontologically many and appear as one to us. Can't it be the other way around?
Right, but he's saying it's ontologically one.
Yeah. And perhaps he could also say that God exemplifies the goodness and bravery, which we don't fully grasp. Um,
Well, from what I
yeah.
understood, you were saying that God just applies good to the context in which good can appear.
Yeah. I
Like,
mean,
for instance, in the opportunity for bravery, God grants you bravery, or
yes.
allows for you to experience bravery. Right. That's
Sure.
why you're not in a constant state of bravery,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because that wouldn't make sense. But
Yeah.
also, I feel like he doesn't allow for that. Well, I mean, I guess you would say that he would allow for that because he is just not illogical. I would say that it's just illogical for him to do that.
For him to allow for bravery and evil.
No, for bravery all the time because it doesn't make sense because the context of bravery needs to be specific. Like you
Um,
can't be sitting on your couch being brave.
yes. Right. Yeah. No, I agree. No, I agree. Um, so let's get a little bit of an idea of the heart of
You
God.
take me at my word. Look what you did.
Just so we know what we're talking about here,
Now,
that it's not, this isn't all just words and arguments and logical things. There's a real heart, a real
And
beating
angry
heart.
Irishman.
of God. No, no. Okay, wait, quickly. Beep boop. Yeah, you're gonna listen to the stream, dude. We're having major Discord problems. I don't know what's going on
Yeah, dude,
at
it's
all.
crazy.
It's really weird.
If you type anything in the Discord at me, and I'll read it to him.
Yeah, you can do that if you want. And for the next stream, I'm gonna uninstall Discord, I guess, and reinstall it. We'll see if that helps. But thank
It
you
might
for
be a
listening to the
graphics
stream.
issue, but I don't know.
Yeah, could be. Numenon says, as an objection to God logic, Allah could exist outside of time and thus eternally love the creation, or something like that. And then, yeah, so they've said that, and then God logic, how he responds is, wait, so in order for Allah to have reciprocal love, he has to create something?
He needs creation, yeah.
Yeah, he has to have something he doesn't have. That means that Allah is not full. And so that's the response to that. But yes, that's a good response, and that's what they usually say. But yeah.
The message why when I read the story I have to fight back tears. And if I read Job, I'll be crying. Honestly, it's too hard for me to read these stories and not cry, because he's too beautiful. But anyway, let me try to finish the story. I don't want to get there yet. So what did God do? He proved his love to them, right? He proved his love. Created Adam perfect. Showed up to Adam. Gave him the animals. Adam, they're yours. Gave him a wife. They're seeing God. God did nothing but show them love, right? He proved to them he loves them and wants what's best for them, right? Because look, if God was selfish, he wouldn't say it's not good for man to be alone. I'll make him emperor. See, he's concerned. Adam, I see you're alone, and I'm going to make a helper for you. So he proved his love for them, right?
Are we reading chat? Or what's happening?
But what was the message? Now,
What's
Adam.
Oh, yeah, you're not in the stream. We're watching a video right now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll just wait.
Which is a tough thing with this Discord problem. But yeah, we're going through Genesis, and we're hearing an exegesis on the story, and sort of, but with this tint of like the heart of God. What did this really mean? What was this relationship like? Forget like the cosmological argument. It's time to forget the arguments for a second, and then and analyze what the relationship between God and man is presented as in the story. Yeah.
It's not like I swear I'm not dipping because you said we're not going to talk about logic. But
yeah. No, I got you.
I do have a D&D game right about now. Also,
go kill that, brother.
I can't watch the
literally
the
can't.
video. So
yeah.
I mean, you know, if there's anything I can do on this side to help, yeah. Also, guys, remember to subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.
Yeah, and join the Discord if you want to.
And join the Discord.
I'm the only one that does.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's not true. American hops in sometimes on my behalf.
Sometimes Sean will say a few sentences.
Sean just comes in to talk about Aquinas.
That's true. Which is fun.
Bro, like, you preach for God, I talk about atheism, and he preaches from Aquinas. For fucking Aquinas.
Yeah, literally. Okay, well,
praise be unto him.
Yeah. Yeah, we got some riffs in the chat for you, Infamous. Good luck on your D&D game. That'll be super fun.
Some riffs?
Yeah, like Rip Infamous, like, you know, see you later.
Oh, Rip Infamous. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully I don't die.
Yeah. Well.
All right.
See ya, bro. Peace.
All right. I'll talk to you in a bit, dude. Bye.
Yeah, if the love is contingent on creation, then all wouldn't be perfect without creation. Great point. Yeah, Beep Boop. He posts memes. I've heard Beep Boop talk too. We've had Beep Boop in the chat. So the memes are great, by the way. We did go through those this morning, but just a quick.
Write a biblical verse in the style. Man was troubled by a peanut butter sandwich.
Classic. Okay, we already did that. So, oh no. All right, screw Discord. It's over. No more Discord. Sorry, guys. Absolutely not messing with Discord right now. Why does it do this, bro? Why does it do it? Okay, let's watch this video. That's a good one.
I've gone out of my way to tell you, trust me. You don't have to learn on your own. You don't have to do things on your own to learn. Trust me to tell you what's right. and obey me, because I have shown you I love you. I don't want to hurt you. I want what's best for you. So take me at my word. So, Adam, here's the test. That tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you eat that tree, you know what you're saying to me? You know what you're saying to me? God, I don't trust you enough to tell me how to run my life. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to learn on my own what is good and right. I will determine what is good and right for myself. No, Adam, you don't want to do that. Believe me, you don't want to do that, Adam. I know what's best for you. So then here's the betrayal. A serpent shows out of nowhere. Here's the betrayal. Now you're going to see the heart of God, and you're going to see with Job. A serpent shows out of nowhere. The serpent, whom they don't know, tells them, God is lying to you. So, did God really say, you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? See, first lie. God didn't say that. See, this is what Satan does. He first gets you to doubt God's word. And he gets you to doubt God's faithfulness. You really trust him? You think he's telling you the truth? He's lying to you. He's jealous of you. He doesn't want what's best for you. He wants slaves that he can control, see? And so when he said to her, first doubt, did God say you shall not eat from any tree of the garden? Now look, she's going to testify against herself. The woman said to the serpent, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. No. He said we can eat it all of it. But from the fruit of the trees in the midst of the garden, God said, you shall not eat from it. You shall not touch it, lest you die. Now, watch. The serpent said to the woman, you surely shall not die. See? You believe him? You really believe? He's lying. He knows you're not going to die. He doesn't want you to eat because he doesn't want you to be like him. He doesn't want you to have knowledge like him, to know what's right and wrong for yourself. See? You surely will not die. For God knows in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be open. You'll be like God, knowing good and evil. See? No, he knows you're going to be like him. You're going to be knowledgeable like him.
It's also interesting here. For God knows in the day that you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So we often get this sort of like, I don't know, we get this question from the more, staunch atheists in the chat. Well, why did God put the tree there in the first place? It seems like he would have avoided all of this if he had just not put the tree in the garden, right? And it's a different question why he let the snake in the garden. Sam is going to address that. But as to the point of why the tree is even there in the first place, because God wants your eyes to be opened. He wants humanity to be like him, knowing good and evil. But there's a time and a place for everything. So it's not like the tree is this evil tree. Hold on. The tree is not some like evil temptation like trick from God to try to test people per se, although it could be properly seen as a test. I mean, I feel like it's valid to test your free will agents that you created to see if they really love you or if they're only love you for what you give them. But beyond that, the tree is there because God wanted people to know what good and evil is like. He wanted to be able to discern between them like the angels. And he wanted us to be like him, but it had to be done right. So when it's done by betrayal and by disobedience, then obviously that introduces sin. That introduces death into the world. If it were done, if Adam and Eve had not listened to the serpent and whatever, kicked him in the head and not eaten the tree, I think they still would have eaten that fruit, just in a very different way, right? In fact, this lesson might, if they had passed, might have been enough to eat the fruit, right? God might have said, well, you guys, I can trust you now. So now you can know about good and evil. But they were untrustworthy, and now they don't. Okay, cool. There's probably some tutorial to fix Discord. Yeah, hopefully. We'll see. I'm just going to uninstall and reinstall. Hopefully that fixes most things, but we'll see. God bless you. God bless you too, beep boop. God bless you too, brother. There's also an idea in Orthodox tradition where God wanted them to eat from it, but not until God gave his blessing to do so. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. It's like he just didn't want them to steal it. Yeah, 100%. That's even better. Like, yeah, that's like there could be all these things. Just don't steal it. Like, he'll give it to you. He's given you everything. He's given you every other fruit in the garden, your life, your wife, your animals, all the pleasures that you enjoy. So why would you go and steal the one thing that you can't? But we're actually going to get a little bit of maybe why from this video, hopefully. But yeah, good chats, everybody.
Him, you're going to be able to know right and wrong, so you don't need him to tell you. See, this was the attack. You don't need God to tell you what's best for you. You can do it on your own.
Which is, by the way, the same line that we use today. Often, actually, it's a very modern sort of atheism line is, what, you need God to tell you how to behave? What, are you not a good person? Right? Why do you need someone judging you, watching you all the time? We hear that today often. It's the devil's favorite line. And I think it's because it works. So.
And you know when the betrayal is? She believed the serpent, whom she did not know.
And that was a sneeze, bless. And I appreciate you. Thank you, Beep. I didn't even realize, but hey, God bless you too, brother. I'm sure you'll sneeze one of these days.
And disbelieved the God who had done nothing but prove his love for her. That's the betrayal. When she ate of the tree, you know what she told God? I don't trust you. I don't think you're good. And I don't think you have my best interest. This stranger whom I don't know, I believe him over against you. Even though you proved your love for me by creating all this for me, I still don't trust you. She broke the heart of God. Because you know what that means? Imagine you, your friend. I'm going to go into Job. So this was the story. Imagine your friend, your buddy. You have done nothing but been good to him, and you prove you loved him. And a stranger comes, and he says a few words about you, and your friend now takes the word of the stranger and betrays you. What would do that? What would it do to your heart?
Rip it in two.
That's what Adam and Eve did to God. You know what they told God? We don't trust you. And his heart broke. This is why I say when you understand the story, it was a story of trust. Adam, will you trust me? Will you take, because I proved my love for you. What more could I have done for you? I gave you the world. I gave you the animals. You could eat anything you want. I even gave you this woman. What more could I have done? To prove my love for you. So that's why when I read it, because you know why? We're all Adam and Eve. To this day, when we do things our way, we're telling God, yes to the serpent, no to you, because I don't trust you to tell me what's best for me. So I'm Adam all over again. So this is the story of the garden. But now watch how much he loves them. Look how much he loves them. He still doesn't want to give up on them.
Yeah, to beep boop. Yeah, I think those. I think that's a great interpretation by the Church Fathers and the Orthodox Church. They are certainly a gold mine, and maybe we'll go back and look at some of that. There's no point for the tree to have been there if he didn't want us to eat it. At least I don't think. I guess you could argue that he wanted specifically to test Adam and Eve, but at the same time, as Reese said, I think he wanted us to eat of it, but when the time was right, not before the time. Totally agree. That's my interpretation. I think the tree was not there just as some sort of like harsh test, but yeah, for the genuine purpose of feeding us that fruit at the proper time. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear of Numenon's favorite church father. I'm personally partial to. Well, we do a lot of Aquinas here. Augustine is cool, but I don't know much about him. He's sort of an influential one. And then, honestly, Gregory of Nyssa. I don't know if he counts as a church father, but he's a really, really cool writer from the early church. And the first person practically in history to oppose slavery and actually condemn it. Other people have been like skeptical of slavery, be like, oh, I don't know if this is right, but it's a necessary evil. Gregor of Nyssa was the first guy to say this is evil. People that do slavery are evil. It needs to be abolished. He called for the abolition of slavery in the 300s. So, I mean, just imagine that. Okay. Continue with this a little bit.
Because remember, he told Adam, the day you eat of it, you shall die. He said it, no? But he didn't die. You know why? Because the serpent said you're not going to die. It almost seems like God was lying to the serpent. You know why? God loved Adam and Eve so much, he could not allow himself to kill them and put them to death. No, I can't. My love for you is so great, I can't see you die. So what did he do? Look what he did. Look at his heart. After doing that, look, he shows up. Why didn't he show up before? Because he was allowing Adam to make a choice. He could have showed up and stopped the serpent. No, this is your time to shine. This is the time for you to make a choice and show Satan and the world, you trust me and you won't take a word of a stranger over against me because you've seen how good I am to you. But Adam, you failed me. You put your wife ahead of me and she trusts a stranger over against me. Did the serpent give you the garden? No. Did the serpent make you a wife? No. Did the serpent give you control over the animals? No. Who did it? I did. But this is how you repay me. This is how you repay me. But then look at his heart. Now, when they ate, they realized they're naked, so they try to cover themselves. Then they heard the sound of God walking out. Now, before this, when God showed up, they would run to him. Like when you have children and you walk in the house and your children run to you, excited to see you. Now they're running away from him. Look, the God whom they couldn't wait to see, and they run to him like children because they were children. Now when they hear him, they run away from him. See, that's what Satan does. Satan wants to destroy you in your sin to make you feel so guilty and disgusted that you're embarrassed and ashamed to face your Father again.
Yeah, some good stuff here. So the most interesting to me is Pseudo Dionysus. Yeah, he's a really cool one. I know. I should look up a video of him because I'd be interested to learn more about him. The apophatic theology is something I'm trying to wrap my head around. I would also like to try that, so maybe we can do that after this. Shamoon is right here. Great evidence towards someone who claims God isn't forgiving in the Old Testament. Yeah, I think we see him forgiving people constantly in the Old Testament. To me, it's not controversial, although I get why people think this, that the God of the New Testament is the exact same God as the God of the Old Testament. It's obvious. But yeah, this is great. I mean, you should see his heart for Adam and Eve. Like, you can see his love for them. Where are you? And he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. Oh, how sad. What if you came home from work and your kids were hiding from you because they'd done something wrong? And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? Now, he's not asking because he doesn't know, obviously. He's saying, come on, guys. Did you really do this? And this is also him giving another chance for forgiveness, because this is an opportunity for Adam and Eve to fess up and say, yes, Father, we did. We're so sorry. We should not have done that. We were tricked. Or don't even say you're tricked. Just take full responsibility for it. And then the man said, the woman you gave to be with me, she's the one that gave me from the tree and I ate. So not only does he blame his wife, he blames God. Another reason that this I don't think is a anti-feminist origin story where well, they put all the blame on Eve, don't they? Well, not exactly. Adam is sort of the more egregious character in this story. Not only does he blame his wife, which he shouldn't have done, he blames God himself. Then Yahweh God said to the woman, what is this you have done? And the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So the woman, she does blame someone else. She doesn't take responsibility. It could be better, it could be worse. but she at least doesn't blame God, and she doesn't even blame her husband, although how could she? She blames the devil, who's a good person to blame, but still not sufficient. It's better to take responsibility for your sins and for your actions in general than to blame anybody else, even if it's the devil himself. And then, hilariously, God does not need to listen to a word that the serpent has to say, and he issues the curses with which we're familiar. Cool. So I also think St. Maximus is a good one. His ideas could be a solution to the problems between empiricism and rationalism debate. I'm just not sure if I understand the ideas correctly. Okay, we can look at that. Honestly, haven't read the works of Maximus from Beepoop. I get most of my understanding of him through scholars and people who talk about him. I think the logos logi doctrine is the way to solve the debate between the empiricists and the rationalists. Okay, he literally gives him a chance to admit to. Back to Genesis from Beepoop. He gives him the chance to admit to it and to ask for forgiveness. Yeah, and that's where Sam goes with the rest of this video. So I think we already kind of know. Although we'll go to this God giving them hope because that'll be interesting. Also, I need to go, but I love the stream. Might come back later if I can. Sweet, brother. Appreciate you. Loved having you here. Always a pleasure in the chat to have Newman on. Take care of yourself, brother. Take care of yourself. All right, let's go to God giving them hope. I'm curious about what that hope is.
Remember, they said, the day we eat, we're going to die. La? Watch the heart of God. And this is going to show you Jesus. I will put enmity, hatred between you and the woman. I'm going to make you now hate the woman. I'm going to make the woman hate you. The very woman that you deceived, you're going to be enemies. And between your seed and her seed, her children, her seed that will come from her will crush your head. You shall bruise his heel. Now, you know, when he said that, you know what he just told Adam and Eve? You know what he told them? You're not going to die. Why? Because they didn't have any seed yet. They didn't have children. But in telling the serpent, her seed, they heard it. He was basically telling them, Adam, Eve, you're not going to die this day. She will have seed. She will have an offspring, and that offspring will crush and destroy the serpent. So in saying that, he gave them hope. God is not going to strike us dead. And more hope. Here's the other one. I will greatly multiply your pain in conception and pain you'll bear children. So now they know, all right, we're not going to die. We're going to have kids. Okay? We're going to have kids. Wow. So God is not going to strike us dead. He said he would. Why? Because this is another teaching from God. I'm going to show it to you. So I hope you don't mind. I'm taking time to unpack this. I want you to learn. You young men, you got to learn this. In pain, you'll bear children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will roll over you. I'm going to come back, and men, I'm going to explain this. This affects relationships. I'm going to explain this right after this. Now to Adam, he said, because you've listened to the voice of your wife, so you chose your wife over me. You put her ahead of me, and that's another sin. You can never put anyone ahead of God, because without God, you wouldn't have anyone. Without God, I wouldn't have my daughters. So it's an insult to God when I put my daughters ahead of him. God's going to say, without me, you wouldn't have these kids. Now you're going to love them more than me and put them ahead of me? So that's what he's saying to Adam. Adam, I gave you this woman, but you put her ahead of me. You would rather see her happy and break my heart than say, no, don't eat because we can't sin against our father. How are we going to hurt our father? You are more concerned about making her happy, even though you knew it would break my heart. You listened to do the evil I told you not to do. I command you, saying, you shall not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. And pain you will eat all the days of your life. So he's saying, you're not going to die today. You will die, but not today. You won't die until you have children, so that the human race isn't wiped out. Because then he says, because you came from the ground, you will return to the ground. That's why we died. You want to know why we died? It's right there. I did not create you to die, Adam. But now you can't live in this body that's now wicked and sinful and decaying. You can't.
Okay. So that's good. I think that's really interesting. We'll look at the chat. Sam is very interesting. He could just be very abrasive. Yes, definitely. He's like the Christian Matt Dillahunty. I saw an interesting point though. So like right now he's obviously preaching to some Christian fellows. He's not debating anybody, and he's just kind of giving an impassioned like, exegesis or his take on this biblical passage. And when he's debating people, that's when he starts to get really, really like aggressive, abrasive, whatever you might call it. And I was listening to another Muslim who had converted to Christianity, and he's saying, yeah, Western people, they don't like Sam Shamoon because they feel like he's, you'd catch more flies with honey than this and that. But for the Arab world, for the Muslims, that type of debate is what they're used to. It's culturally how they engage in debate. And they also have this cultural belief that if you're not like inflamed, like fired up about what you believe in, then you don't really believe it. So I think Sam Shamoon really comes from that culture and that world, so that's why he's like that in general. But I also think that's why he takes that tact with Muslims, because that's how they're used to arguing. They don't get offended by that type of arguing. As you can tell, they usually don't get offended. Sometimes they do, rarely. Usually the Western ones, honestly. But so it's like a very specific type of thing. Also, but I have seen him go off the rails, totally out of, not debating a Muslim, just like talking about another Orthodox guy, and it's like, well, why are you doing that? But anyway, he's got his own little problems, but I think sometimes people think he's more abrasive than he is because when he's arguing with Muslims, you have to be, essentially. So anyway, now let's just go. I love when he finds Jesus in the Old Testament, so we'll just go to that real quick.
He's going to point to Jesus. Now I'm going to connect it with Jesus, huh? Then I'm going to go to Job and I'm going to connect it with Jesus. Then Yahweh made garments of skin for Adam and his wife, and he clothed them. Notice, when they realized they were naked, they took figs and they made themselves aprons and they hid. God could still see their nakedness. It wasn't until he clothed them that they were no longer naked. Do you understand? When they tried to cover themselves, he could still see their shame. He then clothed them. But notice he clothed them with garments of skin. He had to find skin to make them clothing. Well, they're the only human beings. Where do you think he got the skin from?
Animals.
He had to kill an animal for them to be saved. There's pointing to Jesus.
Interesting.
Even though I said you would die, but I love you too much, I don't want you to die. So I will allow someone to die in your place so you can live. And here's now picture to Christ. This animal dies so you can be clothed, because this animal is going to point to Jesus, the Lamb of God, who will die the death we all deserve so we can live forever.
Wow.
So
I never thought about that once. Let's go back and look. So you go like, why is sacrifice so important in the Bible? Why did we need Jesus as a sacrifice for us? And even why throughout the entire Old Testament do we need all these like animal sacrifices? And I never thought of this. Who makes the first sacrifice? God to man. He sacrifices an animal for Adam and his wife to hide their shame. And then obviously you follow this all the way down the line to the final sacrifice where God sacrifices himself for the sons of Adam to hide their shame. It is really beautiful, really incredible how the way this book works. You can always find something else more than any other book, obviously, scripture. Okay. Cool. Let's do maybe either Pseudo Dionysius or St. Maximus, unless we had something else that we wanted. Okay, we'll do St. Maximus. Cool. This looks like a good bid.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mount Athos and Aquinas Fellowship. This episode, we are going to be taking a deeper look at St. Maximus the Confessor's doctrine of the Logoi. After laying out the angelic doctor's thoughts, we will turn our attention to St. Thomas Aquinas to get the Western perspective on the divine ideas. Lastly, I will provide my own synthesis of the two great minds, using the comes to etymology. The word logoi is the plural of logos, which means reason, word, or plan. St. Maximus, however, defines logoi as the thought wills of God. The thought wills of God was originally coined by the angelic doctor named Saint Dionysius. Prior to Dionysius, the term logoi can be found threaded throughout the Greek philosophy, though we won't be discussing the term from their perspective. For St. Maximus, the logoi are the
Alright, this is a little dry, to be honest. This looks a little less dry.
O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
Welcome back, everyone. This is David Patrick Carey with Church of the Eternal Logos, and today I want to speak to you guys about who was Saint Maximus the Confessor. And so this video is the first video in a new video series, and where I want to talk about and provide biographical background information on the lives of various church fathers. And so today we're going to be focusing on Saint Maximus the Confessor, arguably my favorite church father thus far, at least in my Orthodox journey. And so I thought it'd be useful if maybe once or twice a month I did a video on who was St. Basil the Great, who was Simeon the New Theologian. And so just talking about the biographical background information on their lives and then their importance in regards to the church. So not diving into their works, not diving into their theology or anything like that, just background information. So then after a year to 2 years, there's going to be a nice video library for people, novices, people coming into Orthodoxy, where they can find biographical information on the various church fathers. Now, what spawned the idea to even do that was that I plan on and wanted to make a series of videos moving through the cosmic mystery of Jesus Christ by St. Maximus the Confessor. And so I've been thinking about how to put this together into a video series, how to put it in a 2-part series. That's at least my goal right now. And I thought, geez, it'd be useful, obviously, to talk about who St. Maximus is. And I usually do this in my videos, but that almost deserves its own video. And so when we get into the introduction to this book and then move through that text, all this stuff is already there, and we can just reference to this video for people to learn more about it. So that's what literally prompted me to think, oh, well, maybe I should create a new video series once or twice a month, just talking about church fathers and providing biographical background information. And this is the first of. And so St. Maximus has a very special place in my heart, because it is this book that was the first patristic work that I purchased in my journey to Orthodoxy. So as you guys know who are familiar with my story, I did a semester reading Orthodox theology, mostly all modernist theologians. When I say modernist, I'm just meaning really mostly 20th century forward, so more contemporary period of theologians. And then it was after that I bought this work, because, as you know, my interest in Logos theology, and then Maximus's focus on Christology, the incarnation of the Logos-Logoi distinction, and theosis. This book really, really was important to me, and then my further insatiable appetite for Orthodox theology. So I really wanted to work through this text. And like I said, Maximus has a special place in my heart, because he was the doorway for me, really the patristic doorway into Orthodoxy. And so that's why he's arguably my favorite church father. That's why we're making this video. That's why I want to work through this. And also, I'd like to work through the next one on the incarnation in regards to make a video series on the cosmic mystery of Jesus Christ. And then I upload that. And that is Tuesday morning, March, Refutation of Monothelitism. So,
Orthodox is really appealing to me. The only thing I can't really get on board with is their heavy reliance on objects and icons. Yeah, that is probably the most foreign part of it. I went to an Orthodox church. I don't really mind the veneration of icons and things that much. I don't think it. I mean, I guess it does somewhat distract from like worshiping God directly or worshiping Christ directly, but I mean, obviously the way they see it is that you're not worshiping these people or these icons, these images. You're just sort of praying to God through these people or asking for the intercession of these saints and icons. But so I didn't really mind that. The thing that I don't know, when I went to the church, and maybe this is just on me, it felt so foreign to me. Almost like I was joining, or like if I were to join, that I'd be joining like a completely different religion. It felt very, I don't know. I liked it. It was beautiful. I had an amazing time. The sermon was sort of moving, or the service itself. But it just felt like it wasn't my church. I don't know why. I don't know exactly why. In a way that, and for reference, I went to a Catholic church as well, and I'm Protestant, and I felt very at home in the Catholic church. So maybe just a feeling thing. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, the heavy reliance on objects and icons, kissing pictures in church, kissing a cross feels natural. But sometimes kissing pictures of people that you don't really know about, like St. Maximus or something, I'm sure it's proper to do that, but also I don't know who this guy is, and I'm kissing him in church. So I get why it would be a little strange. I do think they have the best saints, the best, I don't know, just everything. Churches, they sort of are the best. But
Maximus was born, we don't know much about his early childhood. Unlike some of the other people we will cover, we just don't know much about his adolescence. We know that he was born in 580. We don't know what city. Some speculate Haspin, some speculate the Golan Heights, some speculate Constantinople. Now, from church tradition and most even scholarly consensus says he's most likely born in Constantinople, given his incredible education in regards to philosophy and theology, mathematics, grammar, and all this stuff. So most likely he was born in Constantinople. Most likely he was born to, at least this is the Orthodox Christian understanding, because we don't know much. He was born to a pious Christian family. Most scholars, I didn't hear the church's position on the sort of wealth in relation to his family, but most scholars believe it was most likely an aristocratic family that he could acquire such an incredible education and then become a secretary, a chief counselor to the emperor, which we'll get to here in a second. So he was born in 580. He dies in 662, August 13th, 662. In fact, that's his feast day, August 13th, although that changes sometimes to January. August 13th.
yeah, no, I mean, Orthodox is really, it's like obviously Christian. It's obviously extremely Christian. It's like probably the most, I don't know if it's the most, but yeah, it just feels a little bit different. I don't know, which is good. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's how it should be. Okay, so these are interesting. I was hoping that this guy would have a St. Maximus video because he makes freaking great videos. Let's rip one of these. Saint Arsenios.
From the Thebaid of Egypt to the caves and cells of Mount Athos, and even beyond, to the vast forests of northern Russia. These are the chronicles of the desert. One day, a villager known as the Faster, for he received much praise for his fasting, journeyed into the desert and visited Abba Zeno in his cell. As they sat, Abba Zeno worked and prayed in silence, while the villager unsuccessfully tried to engage him in conversation. After some time, the villager became bored and asked if he could leave. "Why?" asked Abba Zeno. "Because my heart is on fire and I do not know why. For truly, when I was in the village, I fasted until the evening, and nothing like this happened to me." "That is because," replied Abba Zeno, "in the village you fed yourself through your ears. But go away, and from now on, eat in the afternoon, and whatever you do it secretly." While most of us, like the villager, live among others and struggle with the passions more often by the way of encountering our neighbor, there is much we can learn from the desert fathers and mothers who dwelt in solitude and silence, even while knowing that such a calling may not be our own. For it wasn't just that the villager sought praise, it was that he, like many in our modern age, lived outside himself. When it comes to solitude and silence, none pursued each more than Abba Arsenius. But not before he lived as a well-known scholar during the 4th century. He was fluent in Latin and Greek, well-versed in literature and philosophy, and was often praised for his knowledge and wisdom while he served as a tutor to the 2 sons of Emperor Theodosius. Yet as he lived amidst the opulence of the court in Constantinople, and smelled the sweet perfumes, wore luxurious robes, and gained many honors, he realized that all these were but fading and empty. And so he cried out from the depths of his heart, and said in prayer, "O Lord, lead me in the way of salvation." To which he heard, "Arsenius, flee from men, and you will be saved." Soon after, Arsenius secretly boarded a ship to Alexandria, where, upon arriving, he sought counsel from Abba Macarius the Great, and was tested by Abba John the Short. He once again asked how to rightly live in the wilderness, and heard again from the Lord in prayer, "Arsenius, flee, be silent, pray always, for these are the sources of sinlessness." Heeding the call of the Lord, Arsenios settled in a solitary cell near the fathers at Cetis. By night, he prayed and slept very little. By day, he worked and prayed in silence and shed so many tears that a hollow was channeled into his chest. One day, several monks passed by Arsenios' cell and heard loud noises. "What could that be?" asked the first monk. "He's alone in there," replied the other. "I think he's being harassed by demons." Just then, Arsenios cried out, "O Lord, do not leave me. I have done nothing in your sight. But according to your goodness, let me now make a beginning of good." It was said that he retained such a disposition even up until his final breath. On Saturday nights, he would often leave his cell, turn his back on the sun, and stretch forth his hands in prayer, until once again the sun shone upon his face at dawn.
Jeez.
Afterward, he would go to church and sit behind a pillar, so as not to be seen. Those few who did see him witnessed his angelic appearance. Graceful and slender, tall yet bent with age. A long beard that reached down to his waist, and an outward radiance that was a mere reflection of his inner transformation. One day, a young monk witnessed Arsenios speaking to an old Egyptian monk. "Arsenios," said the young monk, "how is it that you, with such good Latin and Greek education, ask this peasant about your thoughts?" "I have indeed been taught Latin and Greek, but I do not know even the alphabet of this simple peasant. For their words of counsel, born of prayerful solitude and silence, were brief, but grace-filled, and beneficial to those who listened. For whereas the one who speaks many words reveals his own doubt and proclivity to vainglory, the friend of silence, according to St. John of the Ladder, draws near to God in faith, and by secretly conversing with him is enlightened. This seeking of silence begins by first restraining the tongue. I have often repented of having spoken," Arsenios once said, "but never of having been silent."
Yeah, that's a good point. There's an excellent Orthodox YouTuber I watch. His name is Crusade with Care. Okay, yeah, well, check him out. Check him out after this. Great short form stuff. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I think it's so true. It's so easy to repent. And I would say this as someone who talks a lot, talks for a living in some ways. But you only repent things that you said. You never repent being silent. Or forget repentance, just like regret. I don't know. So that's an interesting point. It is a fine line. Well, we should all seek a little silence. Watching these videos just makes me want to like go into the desert and sit silently for some extended period of time. I don't know if I could handle it. I think that would probably be even more foreign to me than going to an Orthodox church. Yeah, good point. Can't sin if you don't talk. Well, I don't know about that, but but I do take your point. Yeah, you can't speak ill of people. Hard to judge people if you don't even talk. But that doesn't mean there should be no talking. I mean, talking is good, but there just should be a proper amount of silence. I don't know.
After many years, the name of Arsenios once again became known due to the grace of God now abounding from him. And yet, he would still often refuse to meet others, both to ward off vainglory and to preserve humility and stillness.
Yeah,
such as the day when Archbishop Theophilos, accompanied by a magistrate, came to see Arsenios and said, "Abba, give us a word." To which Arsenios replied, "Will you put into practice what I say to you?" "Indeed, Abba," they replied. "If you hear Arsenios is anywhere," he replied, "do not go there."
What?
Soon after, Abba Mark asked, "Why do you avoid us?" Arsenios replied, "God knows that I love you, but I cannot live with God and with people. The thousands and myriads in the heavens have but one will, while people have many. So I cannot forsake God to be with people." And yet, being led by the Spirit, he did meet with some people, while others he sent away. To each he gave counsel appropriate to what they needed. But even for those he turned away, he prayed fervently, knowing that the grace of God would be of more help than any words he could speak. One day an official from the capital came to see Arsenios, and brought him the will of a senator, who was also a relative of Arsenios. "Abba, he has left you an exceedingly large inheritance." Abba Arsenios refused the inheritance, only saying, "I was dead long before this senator who has just died." For Arsenios, by this time, had crucified his flesh, with its passions and desires, and sought only that inheritance which is unfading and imperishable. And through this dying to himself, he became fully alive, able to say along with St. Paul, "It is not I, but Christ who lives in me." One day, a young monk visited the Abba's cell. Not wanting to disturb the old man, he waited outside for a while. Finally, the young man peeked through a window to see if the Abba was even home. Just then, he saw Arsenios standing in prayer, entirely like a flame of fire. Astounded, the brother waited for some time before knocking.
I mean, imagine. Imagine. That's so cool.
Soon after, Arsenios came out and noticed the brother marveling. "Have you been knocking long? Did you see anything?" "No, Abba," replied the astonished monk. And so Arsenios spoke with him briefly, and then sent him away. Much of the fruit of such prayer remained hidden, save for the many lives who unknowingly benefited from them, and for the few simple words that Arsenios offered his disciples from his own experience. If we seek God, he will show himself to us, and if we keep him, he will remain close to us. When Abba Arsenios was at the point of death, the disciples saw him weeping and asked, "Abba, are you afraid?" "Indeed, the fear which is mine at this hour has been with me ever since I became a monk." Upon these words he fell asleep. Silence is a mystery of the age to come, writes Saint Isaac the Syrian. But words are an instrument of this world. While most cannot take flight in so radical a manner as did Arsenios, we too can flee from the passions and the many distractions around us by drawing closer to God through prayer and silence on a regular basis. We can start by limiting our words, by being watchful over what we hear and say. This can, in turn, lead to a more inward silence, which, as St. John of the Ladder says, gives birth to prayer, preserves the fire within, and is a companion to the stillness which enables us to truly listen to God, to hear his voice, and to commune with him.
Wow. Cool. I love these stories. This channel is amazing. You should look at Trisagion Films. It's all this. Let's see. This one is crazy. Saint Gabriel, the Fool for Christ. You should definitely watch that. I cried at the end. Truly, he's an incredible person and a modern saint. He died in like 94. I think he died in 94, and lived through some horrific Soviet era communist torture. Okay, so the guy Crusade with Care. Let's look that up. Cool.
Hello, friend.
Sweet. This guy's cool. Bit of a smaller channel. I like it. Let's do... how about this? sounds
Let no one be deceived by the falsehoods and slander against the legacy of St. Patrick, painting him as a destroyer of a culture and people, and a villain who imposed a foreign faith upon the Irish. Patrick came not with the sword, but with the gospel of peace. He was a captive who returned to the land of his captors to preach salvation. At the age of 16, Patrick was taken by Irish raiders from his home in Roman Britain. Torn from his family, he was sold into slavery and forced to work as a shepherd in the cold isolation of the Irish hills. It was there, amid the loneliness and suffering, that Patrick turned to God. He later wrote in his Confessio, "After I had come to Ireland, I used to pasture the flock each day, and I prayed many times a day. More and more the love of God and his fear came to me, and my faith was strengthened. In a single day, I would say as many as 100 prayers, and at night nearly as many." After 6 years of bondage, Patrick escaped. He recounted that he was guided by God in a dream to find a ship that would return him to his homeland. He could have remained there, safe among his kin, but God called him once more. Patrick had a vision of the Irish people calling him back. "We beg you, holy youth, that you shall come and walk among us again." And so Patrick obeyed. He returned not with anger or vengeance, but with the gospel of Christ upon his lips, and the love of God in his heart. Patrick did not tear down Irish culture, he sanctified it. The shamrock, long revered as a sacred plant, he lifted up as an image of the Holy Trinity. In this, Patrick, much like Paul, when he spoke to the Athenians, saw an opportunity to connect the gospel to the existing understanding of the people. Just as Paul acknowledged the Athenians' religious devotion and pointed to the unknown God as the one true God, so too did Patrick take what the Irish held dear and revealed its deeper, true meaning. The shamrock, a simple, familiar plant, became a symbol of the divine mystery of the Trinity, showing how God in his infinite wisdom meets people where they are. As for the well-known folk song about Patrick driving the snakes from Ireland, let no one be misled into thinking that this refers to a violent extermination of the people. The snakes in the song are symbolic of the pagan practices and idolatry. This is not a tale of genocide, but a story of spiritual deliverance. Patrick did not wield a sword against flesh and blood. He preached Christ, and by the power of the Holy Spirit, he drove out the darkness of idolatry. It was the ancient ways of superstition, not the people themselves, that were cast aside. In his letter to the soldiers of Coroticus, Patrick even denounced the violence of certain British soldiers, condemning their actions as opposing the love and mercy of Christ. Patrick did not stand with the sword, but with the cross. He wrote of his joy at baptizing thousands, ordaining priests, and spreading the gospel throughout the land, not by compulsion, but by the persuasion of truth. He proclaimed that all were welcome to receive the grace of God, regardless of their past, for the gospel is for all. Patrick's mission bore fruit beyond his lifetime. The Irish Church became a beacon of faith and learning. The monasteries founded in Patrick's wake preserved the scriptures and the writings of the early church fathers through the chaos of the fall of Rome. Irish monks like St. Columba and St. Brendan became missionaries to the world, carrying the light of Christ back to a Europe shrouded in darkness. Had Patrick imposed the faith by violence, it is unlikely that the enduring faith of Ireland would have flourished as it did. He wrote, "I am greatly a debtor to God, who has bestowed his grace so largely upon me, that many people through me should be born again to God and brought to full life." Through Patrick's unwavering faith, he brought the light of the gospel to a people in a land that had long known only darkness. Patrick's work was not one of conquest, but of grace, a grace that has endured through the centuries and continues to illuminate the hearts of those who call upon the name of Christ. As the day approaches, let us remember the true spirit of his mission, not in mere celebration, but in his example of faith, humility, and dedication to Christ. May his unwavering trust in God inspire us to live boldly in the light of the Word. Happy St. Patrick's Day, my friends. God bless, and crusade with care.
Nice. I like that guy. That's sweet. And I love St. Patrick. He's one of my favorites. I read a whole sort of like mini biography of him a while ago, and he's just incredible. That's why, I don't know, Infamous one time said that like Christianity like violently sort of invaded or like colonized Ireland, and I was scratching my head because I was like, I'm pretty sure St. Patrick converted pretty much all of Ireland by his lonesome. And it's not like he was some sort of crusader. You know what I mean? Not that the Crusaders even did that either. But anyway, that's a good channel. That's good to know about. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. I'm going to leave it there for today. Got a lot of stuff going on, unfortunately. Got to run. But I think it was a good stream. Super fun. Had a heated conversation. Had some more mellow videos, stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys being here and joining. And, you know, hit that notification bell so you know when I'll be back. Next time we'll have Discord running. That's another... Well, that was just annoying. But I'll get it all fixed for next time. So appreciate y'all. God bless. Much love.